Welcome, welcome, welcome. One thing I wanted to speak about is something a little bit new, and that's what's been happening during the Wednesday meditations. It actually happens all the time when we're coming together. And, it's a big part of this spiritual path. You have to forgive me getting over a pretty rough cold that I had this last week. And so, yes, for those of you who've been attending the Wednesday evening meditations, what you've noticed is that the grace that's coming is quite powerful, quite profound. And so, we can look at grace a number of different ways. Like the Buddhist way of looking at grace is to say that it's just an energy that comes and goes. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it doesn't. But if you look a little deeper, than just dismissing grace, dismissing God, and actually begin to step into the mind of God, you'll see that a couple things are happening. The most basic, of course, and I think we all know, is that God is waking up in us. God is waking up in us. And this is huge, of course. But I want to speak about the second thing, which is God transforming your mind, God transforming your emotional nature, and even the physicality of your body. And so it's one thing just to wake up and out of egoic existence. But if we simply wake up into a transcendent state of consciousness, what we see is that most of the time our mind and our emotional nature is unchanged. We wake up and we see the mind being a monkey mind. We see the emotional nature, doing its old habitual dance, and we observe it. But this grace that is coming, that has been coming, is bringing a light of transformation, which is wanting to shift your consciousness in a permanent way. It's wanting to bring you a new mind. A new mind, which is actually quite silent and empty. And yet deeply intelligent. And this is not an intelligence that the egoic nature can claim. This is an intelligence that comes from a different realm. And so whenever I speak, if there's something good here, none of it can I claim and say, yes, this is mine. This came of my creation, like my egoic nature. But rather it comes from a different dimension. And if you listen to the words, you may say, well, these words aren't that different than what most spiritual teachers are saying, which is true. Christ spoke about a new life. And many have spoken about a new life. But if you feel into the vibration of what's here, you feel into the grace and the transmission, you'll see that something is happening. And again, please don't put me as a middleman. Something is happening between God and you, between the intelligence of the universe and you, between the evolutionary nature of God and you. And so as you feel into your mind, you may notice, like during the meditations while you're sitting, You may notice that your mind starts spinning out of control with lots of thoughts because there's a heat that's here. There's a fire that's here. There's an intensity that's here that's burning up resistance. And for those of you who've made it past, the stage of resistance where your mind is just fighting with God, you may notice you're just left with this brilliance, a brilliance in the space in the mind, a brilliance which is the very fabric of the mind. And so that the mind is not simply just empty spaciousness like the Buddha taught, but has a quality of radiance and a step further, a quality of intelligence, divine intelligence that requires zero thought. The thinking is happening without you, through you, and then eventually as you. Without you, then through you, and then eventually as you. And more as you surrender your own limited human thinking mind. As we surrender in this way, something great can come in its place. And it's helpful if you're conscious about what's happening and you consciously cooperate. And I'll say the same experience is happening in our vital nature, which is often referred to as our feeling, our emotional nature. As the old fight or flight operating system is cooked in this furnace of grace, you'll discover a different type of feeling nature that comes online, where the baseline is bliss. The base is bliss. The fabric is bliss. The fabric is radiance. Whereas right now, for most of us in this world, the fabric of our emotional nature is fear. It's fear. It's fight or flight. It's worry. It's doubt. And so when we have these things, we always have a choice. When you have a thought in your consciousness, a human thought, you have a choice. Do I believe this? And create a reality based on, my habitual egoic nature, which is based on someone else's habit, which is based on someone else's habit, based on someone else's habit, which is based on the species. And again, you'll see that almost every thought you have is normal human thought, has at its core fight, flight, freeze, and or desire. And like right now, at least here in the United States, we're coming up upon Thanksgiving week. And so all the retailers are just flooding your TV and your internet with all these ads and about buying a new TV. So you're watching on TV, a TV probably works just fine, telling you to buy a new TV. You have probably a pretty good car and they're telling you buy a new car. It just came out, I think, with the iPhone 13. So they're showing you here's the next one to get. So they're selling you desire, trying to hook you into this dance. But imagine if every commercial you saw on TV came from this higher consciousness. What would it be selling you? How about a life of love, of peace, of freedom, and a reminder that your nature is bliss, that you can be bliss, that you can be this greater thing. And so we all have a choice. right now on planet Earth. Who do we want to be? Do we want to be a repetition of the past? We want to be a repetition of fear, of anger, of fight, of vengeance, of showing someone they're wrong. And we just had, good 4 or 5, 6 years of just highly political arguing and fighting with each other. Is that how we want to live? Do we want to tell everyone that I am woke and you are not? Therefore, you are condemned to hell, or at least you'll be canceled. Do we want to live in this way? Screaming, shouting, telling everyone they're wrong, and living in a tribal way. Or do we want to live in a unified way? And so we have this choice deep within us. As we begin to wake up, we see that we have this power to choose, to cooperate with this grace, this greater intelligence. And this grace that's coming into the room, put pressure on your psyche, put pressure on your emotional nature. Even for some of you who are really awake and really sensitive, you'll see it puts pressure on your body. For a new body to come, a new mind, a new emotional nature. And so these are great questions to ask. Am I willing to cooperate? Am I open to this? What type of life do you want? And if you want this new life, what are you willing to surrender? In maybe 5 or 6 weeks from now, we'll be facing the new year, and that's when everyone will be doing their 30-day workout challenge, 30 days, lose 30 pounds, or whatever the challenge is. An exercise very similar to the spiritual path. What you put into it. And we don't lose weight through sitting on the couch and not changing. We lose weight through giving of ourselves, through giving up old habitual ways of being where we're eating the whole bag of potato chips. Maybe I'll eat a whole bag of carrots instead. Come to my house, eat a whole bag of carrots. And with the spiritual path, it's like, hey, if you want to wake up, to know yourself as bliss, are you willing to surrender your anger, your righteousness? Are you willing to surrender that part of you that thinks it knows? That's a big one for many people. They think they know the way. And so often my prayer to God is, Lord, you show me the way. You show me a new life. You show me something I haven't seen before. You, Lord, transform my consciousness into something much greater. Much greater. And that's the invitation here, as we cooperate consciously with the intelligence of the Creator. See what God has in store for you. I can assure you it's something much greater than what your ego has in store for you. Ego may have a big, I don't know how big TVs are, 56-inch TV. A plasma screen, if that's a thing. Plasma may be outdated. What's the new thing? 4K. 4K, I think that's the new thing. 4K TV. What the ego may be salivating about. But what does your heart want? And are you willing to surrender your emotional heart? A heart based in fight or flight, based in pain and pleasure, for a greater heart, greater mind, greater consciousness. Are you willing? And so these questions I invite you to deeply reflect upon. What are you willing to surrender? What are you willing to give up for this greater life? And this greater life, you may have no idea what that is. But for some of us, you might be a little bit bored with life and say, okay, I'm willing to gamble, I'm willing to surrender my kind of mundane, boring life and walk out into the unknown and give of myself in the unknown. Not really sure what God is going to bring in its place. And the thing with the path, the thing with God, and the thing with evolution is sometimes change is like that. Sometimes change is very slow and gradual. Sometimes change feels like we're being tortured. But you give it a couple weeks or a couple months, and you realize this thing that you thought was torturing you is actually here to liberate you, here to free you. You know, I've certainly not had an easy life here on planet Earth. When I look back at all the pain and suffering I've been through, I realize there was a point to it, a purpose to it. It helped me to see something I wasn't able to see, helped me to open to an aspect of self, an aspect of consciousness I was unwilling to see. But there's a different way we can grow. It doesn't require pain and suffering. It simply requires an opening of the heart. Opening of the heart, where we receive a greater light, a greater love, a greater mind. We receive a greater body. And I invite you to envision this. You're going to come into your heart and ask, what do I truly want? What do I want? I allow myself to envision my truth, which is really God's truth, which is really our truth, which is really God's truth, which is really yours truth, which is really God's truth. What do you really want? You let God speak to you through the very voice of your own heart. What kind of life do you want? Are you willing to dream big? You know, for those of you in the group who struggle with unworthiness, this isn't a time for unworthiness. This isn't a time for naysaying. This isn't a time for doubting. This isn't a time to, click on the news and see, well, what is Don Lemon from CNN? What does he think the future looks like? Let's not ask him. And let's not ask Tucker either. I invite you to ask your heart, what kind of life do you want? And are you walking in this direction? Walking in this direction. For many of us, one of the funniest things that we have to give up. We have to give up the repetition of our father and our mother in our own body, in our own consciousness. And sometimes I look in the mirror and I see my father. I said, geez, you're still here. I thought you died a while ago, but you're still here. In the way I hold my body, or the way I speak, or the way I respond to, stepping on a Lego or whatever it is. And we have so much of this past within us. And this is a real big one for many of us. Are you willing to surrender your father and mother? The entrenched aspects of your psyche that are repeating the life, the habits, the tendencies of mom and dad within you. And for those of you who are really young in the Sangha, you may not see it yet. Normally, it's helpful to have a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, the person you're with, because they can point out, oh, you're acting kind of like your dad, or you're acting kind of like your mom, or you don't have to be that way. What would it be like just to be you and not egoic you? Because egoic you is simply a repetition of the past. What would it be like to be the holy you, the holy one? What would that be like? And so can you envision this? You begin to walk in this direction. Can you say yes? Yes to being holy. So many of us, we've spent our life trying to be less than. Our parents told us we were less than, so we're gonna make sure we are less than. Mom and dad told me I was no good, rotten scoundrel. So that's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to be. Or we rebel against our father, we rebel against our mother, and we become them. No, that's not the way. Of course, that's not the way. Can we not rebel, but choose to step into that which is greater? We call upon the energies of the heart. We call upon the energies of the Buddha nature to give us the strength to open to this grace. Open to this grace. A while ago, Mother Mira, she popped up in my YouTube feed and it said live on them, underneath the video. I said, oh, she's, offering a meditation right now. So I clicked on it. And as soon as I stepped into that, I just felt this grace, this intensity. And she's part of this lineage. She comes with this transformational grace that comes often like a pressure cooker. You'll feel it cooking the karma out of you, cooking the darkness out of you. And I just sat there for a good part of an hour, just feeling this light and realizing, oh, her light and the light that comes during our meditation is very similar. Very similar. It comes with intensity. And for some people, it scares them away. They say, I can't handle this. This is too much. It makes me want to squirm or scream or run out of the room. But I encourage you to stay. To stay and see what comes. See what comes. Luis in the Sangha, she told a beautiful story this week. Luis, I hope it's okay if I share, but I'm going to assume it's okay. But she went to jujitsu, the first couple of times, and I guess she's giving me the thumbs up. And she saw these, people rolling around, and she's never really rolled before. That's like sparring. She got a little nervous. Like, what would they think? How would it feel? Would it beat her up or whatever? And sometimes when we step in the room with this grace, it's real similar. Like God can come in a really intense way, a fiery way, a transformative way. And when the Holy Spirit comes in the room, the Divine Mother comes here. It can be so bright. There'll be aspects of the ego that turn and run out of fear. Turn and run. And for those of you who are here, I see you've chosen to come and stay and to drink from this cup. To see what type of life it will bring you. What type of life? I can assure you that it'll bring you something greater, but I won't guarantee that it will be easy. I won't guarantee it'll be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. It's kind of like the more we resist, the more difficult it is. The more we surrender, the greater life is given to us. So anyways, so nice to be here with all of you. If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and bring it forward. I have a question from email that I'll start with. If I can find it here. Hi, Craig. This is from Nick. Hi, Craig. My mind constantly tells me that something is out of place. I've done something wrong, and that I've fallen off the path. I try to soften around this reoccurring train of thought, but it continues to persist. Do you have any insight into this? Yeah. I think many of us know this voice. We have a mind that may be nagging us or saying, hey, like there's something off here. And from the most basic place, to have an ego is to have a voice in your consciousness that's going to be telling you throughout the day, there's something wrong. And I'll say this is the primary job of your egoic nature, is to scan the environment and to look for problems. Look for problems. Now, if you're a framer, like if you build houses, when you walk onto the job site and you're, just going through your checklist, like, do we have this thing wrapped up? The thing you're looking for is drywall, like sheetrock nailers. So it's one thing to build the walls, but then you have to put in these extra studs to attach the sheetrock to in the corners and in different places. And so, it can be helpful to have this type of mind that's looking for problems. If you're driving down the interstate, you can not look for problems, just have your hand like this on your phone or texting, and, you might, drive off the road or run into someone. And so it's good. You turn your neck, you look around, you look both ways, you look in the rear view mirror, you look in all the mirrors. And so this is good. It's good. It keeps you safe, keeps you alive, keeps your body alive. And so that's the most primary, aspect of a mind that's telling you there's something wrong. If we even take it a step further back, it has a divine root in the sense that this is the evolutionary nature of God. Evolution doesn't sit and stop. It's always growing. It's always moving forward. If you look at the history of this planet, it's not just a world of just rock, molten rock. This planet has grown into what it is now. So evolution is always moving through us. And this is an aspect of our consciousness, is evolution is just always subtly pushing for us to expand, to grow, to move beyond the limited nature of the past. This is an aspect of divinity that most teachers don't speak about, our evolving nature, the evolving nature of life, as an expression of God. But if we look at the question, Nick adds a little bit more detail, because it becomes a little bit more personal, that I've done something wrong and I've fallen off the path. And so anytime we have a critical voice within our consciousness, the first thing I ask is, did you have a mom or dad, who was critical? Did you have any authority figure in your life when you're young who was really critical? And if that's the case, sometimes this voice is simply an internalized version of mom or dad. Like when I was young, I had a father, he was like a drill sergeant. And so, as a way of loving him, we do this unconsciously, as a way of loving him, I mimicked his thoughts, his beliefs, his personality. This is what children do, is they do all these little behaviors that are repetitions of their parents. The parents model something, and the kid acts it out in their own consciousness. And after you do it long enough, it just becomes a way of being. And then the past is present. The past is just repeating itself in the form of you. In the form of you. And so it's a good question. Like, did my father pick on me? Did my mother pick on me? And sometimes they don't even have to pick on you. Sometimes the father just picks on himself. I have a little boy that comes over and plays with my daughter. And he says these really harsh things sometimes, He'll be sitting there playing, and he'll, be playing with Legos or whatever, playing with a stick in the yard, and stick will break. And he'll say, I hate myself. I wish I was dead. And I'm like, my God, little boy, like, what's going on with you? 7 years old. There should be zero self-hatred, But his daddy's not around. His mother is. He's got a great mom. But sometimes mom or dad abandons us, and we take that on. We take an experience of abandonment, and we don't, as a kid, oftentimes we don't think mom or dad was bad. If they abandon us, we think that we are bad. There's something wrong with me. So that's another place to look. If we have any kind of abandonment issue or something, if we've been abandoned, oftentimes we think there's something wrong with me. And so these are all just clues. These are things we can play with. The next one, feel like I've done something wrong and then I've fallen off the path. This is a fair question for any of us. Well, is it true? Is it true? Have I fallen off the path? It's impossible, by the way, to fall off the path, but our attention can fall off the path. We can stop, consciously cooperating with God. That's a way of falling off the path. And so is it true? Like, are we busy? I'll have some fun here with Nick. Are we busy chasing ladies? Are we busy chasing money? Are we busy chasing a deal at, shopping Costco and Amazon and Walmart? Who's got the cheapest, 56-inch TV, 72-inch? How about that for a TV? Who's got the cheapest one? Some people just fall off the path because they're too busy shopping as a form of distraction. So it's a fair question. And it's important not to ask this question from the place of the critic, but to ask this question from the place of the heart. Like, have I fallen off the path? No, I haven't fallen off the path. And so this is the next part of his question. He says, I try to soften around this reoccurring train of thought, but it continues to persist. Do you have any insight? So now I'm going to ask you, as you soften into this critical, aspect to self, if you ask the critic, the one who's tight, tense, the one who thinks he's bad and he's fundamentally flawed. If you ask the critic, like, what do you need? What do you need? Like, how can I help you? What do you need? How can I help you? And on the surface, you may say something like, I need you to change. I need you to dedicate more fully to the path. And that's a fair thing for him to say. Then if you ask him, well, why? Like, what does he think he'll get? What do you think you'll get from getting back on the path? What do you think you'll get from getting back on the path? And whatever that is, whether it's love or peace or happiness or relaxation, freedom, joy, I encourage you to invoke that energy. To invoke that energy. So the critic may be saying, like, from a place of anxiety, there's something wrong with you. You need to step back on the path. Okay, if you did step back on the path, what do you think we would get? Well, then I would be able to relax. Okay, good. How about we flood the body with a feeling of relaxation? We do this in a conscious way, where you're inviting peace to come into the body. And this is where we can call upon grace. We can say, God, will you come into me? Will you hold this critical nature? Will you help me to love it more fully? Will you help me bring this critical nature into the light? Into the light. And the trick here, the key here, is that we're not trying to get rid of the critic, but we're truly loving it. So softening, like you said, is the first thing you do. That's good. And so we need to soften more fully. We need to embrace this part of us with love. We might even find that place within us that feels wrong, that feels abandoned, that feels no good. And then we ask these questions to that part of us as well. The part of us that feels wrong, like, hey, what do you need? And normally that's love. So we invite love to flow into this place that feels wrong. We talk to it sweetly and kindly, compassionately. And again, we invite God to come in, to hold us, the adult, to hold the child within us that feels wrong. And we breathe and we say, sweetie, I love you so much. It's okay. Little buddy, it's okay. Like, it's okay. You're not bad. You're not wrong. And you might see this place within you. It might hold painful memories or sadness or just all kinds of feelings of being abandoned. And we welcome these into the light. And as these feelings come forth, they're met with light, they're met with love, they're met with compassion. And then I invite you to take it a step further. And if you ask this place within you that once felt so wrong, like, what kind of life do you want? And what you'll find is oftentimes the places that have been abused and abandoned and hurting, what they really want is a spiritual life. They want to be reconnected to love. They want to be connected to bliss. They know this isn't the truth. They know there's a greater way. And so we begin to walk in the direction of bliss, of light, of happiness, of joy. And while we're walking in that direction, we're not judging ourselves, saying we're doing it wrong. We're saying, I love myself so much, and I'm committing myself more fully to the spiritual path. And by now, if we follow, if we're going to follow this healing work in this way, you'll see that criticism has transmuted into discernment. has transmuted into inspiration, where we are living an inspired life. So when you live a truly inspired life, you're not feeling wrong. You're feeling really right. You're feeling like, gosh, I'm doing so much good. I'm living my truth. I'm living my truth. Like me, for example, I tend to, feel pretty good in my consciousness, just generally speaking. But if I worked in an auto parts factory in Detroit, there might be a part of me saying, like, I feel pretty good, but this isn't really my truth. I don't feel inspired. I just showing up every day, doing the same old thing, punching the time card. This isn't my truth. It isn't my truth. There's a greater life. And so ultimately, we want to feel inspired. We want to feel connected. We want to feel as if we are giving of ourselves, not just surrendering egoic habits, but giving of our gift, sharing our light, shining our light in the world. If you don't feel as if you're shining your light in the world directly, if you're not seeing this world as holy and as divine, you're going to feel like there's something a little bit off. There's something missing here. And again, that's a good thing, because where the ego is right, it's telling you, hey, there is a deeper way to live. And as we step into this evolutionary channel, where life becomes exciting, ecstatic, becomes blissful, even if you're sick, even if you have COVID, even if, times are rough, when you're living the truth, it feels exciting, it feels liberating. It feels as if you're on the edge of something new and you're constantly letting go into this. And you feel both satisfied and also growing at the same time. And so we grow not from pain, but we grow from inspiration. And so I invite you, Nick, to explore this question and see, is this just an emotional thing? Is it an emotional pain? Is it a trauma? Is there a part of me that just knows I could be doing more? And there's a part of me that's just like kind of just drifted into like a lazy unconsciousness? Is there a part of me that wants to be more inspired? And if so, am I walking in that direction? Am I doing the things to support my inspiration? Or am I doing things that drain my inspiration? And so again, these are beautiful questions for all of us. I think we can all identify with this question. So thanks so much, Nick, for the question. It's beautiful. Yeah. If there's any part of it that I missed, you're welcome to raise your hand or throw it in the chat. Okay, here's something from Terry. She writes, "Hi, Craig. I have to admit that I get headaches regularly since a decade. They used to be extreme and proved after awakening, but lately I'm connected to them to occurring after your meditations. Not this week, but the last week before. My headache lasted 4 days, more than the usual 2. I had to keep going into the pain to accept it, that it would be better, but it kept coming back. What can I do to respond better? I feel like I'm missing something here. How to deal with resistance in the physical body." Okay, so a couple things. Like sometimes when light, when energy, when grace comes into a body with denseness, with resistance, don't take that personally, Terry. That's everyone. Like this human mammal body is dense. It's dense, it's heavy, it's just full of the past. And as the light comes into it, sometimes we can get a headache from meditating. Sometimes the headache is from your consciousness expanding. Sometimes it's coming into resistant aspects of your consciousness. And the normal egoic thing is, well, if it feels bad, it is bad. But that's not how the mind of God works. The mind of God says, I want to grow. And sometimes there's growing pains. Sometimes there are growing pains. And, this Christian word of bearing it, well, we bear the pain. We open to it. We surrender to it. It can seem, that can kind of flow into like a guilt thing or a martyr thing, but don't take it that way. If you open to the pain and begin to explore it, say, what is this about? Like so often, what I found in life, like when I had, I guess I would call this like a spiritual headache, it's because a light came into my consciousness. It's so bright. I began to cook my egoic nature. And if I just glanced at the headache just quickly from perspective of ego or just simply from the perspective of my nervous system, say, oh, there's something here I don't understand. There's something here I don't like. It hurts. If I step back and look again more deeply and patiently, I begin to see, oh, this is not actually a headache. It's actually a brilliance that's coming into me. A brilliance. And can I open to this brilliance? But when I label it headache, it's like, heck no, I'm not going to open to that. I'm going to resist it or, do what people do. They take a pill to try to make it go away. And look, if it purely was a physical thing, maybe the pill's the right way. Maybe drinking some more water is the better way. Maybe doing a juice fast is a different way. Maybe, what's a new one? Lion's mane mushroom, that will save me. And maybe maybe if it's a physical thing, handle it physically. If it's a grace thing, can you open up your heart? Say, God, what are you doing in me? Can you show me how to cooperate with this? Can you help me receive this grace in a more cooperative way, more open-hearted way? And you're not going to be the first person who had, spiritual energies that came in the form of pain. If anyone knew the life of J. Krishnamurti, he, in his autobiography, he wrote, so much about these headaches that he would get. Just tremendous headaches he suffered with them most his life. I know my teacher suffered greatly. A lot of people don't speak about this, but path of awakening can include some physical pain. It can include some physical pain, but I assure you that pain will push you into another dimension. And the more you cooperate with it, the quicker it goes. The more you fight it, the longer it stays. But in a sense, it's very much like childbirth. Is something greater is coming. Something greater is coming. And sometimes the path is simply to bear the pain, to open to it, to explore it. Sometimes, just with a couple questions, like, what is this really? What is this headache truly about? As you feel into it, as you feel the texture of it, texture of the energy, the intensity, the quality, you're going to discover, oh, this is light. And you soften and open to light. Sometimes the pain will just shift into brilliance just like that. Just like that. Sometimes it'll take, a day, a week, a month to cut a new path in you. But I assure you, true spiritual awakening, it's not some little thing. It's a big deal. And it requires a big change, even within your physical nature. And I can also assure you that it is worth it. It's worth it. It's worth bearing the pain. It's worth bearing it. You know, my teacher said to me, I've said this often, I used to complain to him how much pain I was in for so long. I had so much pain just all over my body, different parts, headaches, my whole back. Just the whole nervous system just felt like it's on fire and locked up all the time. I'd say to my teacher, I'm in so much pain. He'd say, you don't know what pain is. Boy, that made me angry. And then I realized he was telling me, like, you don't know what this is. Like, you don't know what this pain is. Like, investigate it, sit with it, open to it. And I was shocked to see, oh, it's not pain. It's light. It's energy. It's grace. It's something miraculous, not something horrific. And when you get on the wavelength that you begin to see what it is, experience what it is, you feel a liberation inside. No longer feels like pain. So anyways, I hope that was helpful. Just another practical thing I can say, anything you can do to help your body relax and feel safe. Normally, if we relax our body, help our body to feel safe, resistance, might go from a 10 to like a 2 or a 3. If the body doesn't feel safe, the mind doesn't feel safe, our resistance can stay at a 10 for a long time. All right. Well, look who's here. Ivy's here. Hi, Ivy.
Hi, Craig. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, what I wanted to talk about when you were asking, what do you want? I've been, obviously, the backstory, going through so much over the past year. And I felt like that question bypassed the personality, because the personality at this point does not know what it wants.
Uh-huh.
I have no idea. I can't answer that question, but the deeper self, my deeper self, I feel like that is starting to emerge, and come online, but I don't know what it looks like. I want to say, I was going to say feels like, but that's not true. I feel something, but I can't really name it. But so my question is, in this liminal state, that's what it feels like. I'm in between. And I'm having dreams about packing, okay, and leaving. Like, I'm always like leaving and going somewhere. And I'm like, where am I going? I wake up, I'm like, where am I going? Where am I going? But it's constant, like these dreams I'm having of leaving. So I guess I don't know. I don't know if there's a question in here. I mean, I feel like there is, but I'm having a hard time finding it. But I guess I'm very comfortable with the unfolding now.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been beaten down a lot this year. So, I've been needed, whittled down, this whole thing. So I feel very connected, and there's a lot of space. But at the same time, like the personality, that part of me is calming down within this. So, I guess the unfolding, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask. Like, how did you go through that? Did you go through that?
Well, let me challenge you a little bit. Are you sure you don't know what the truth is?
Okay, so if I were to answer the question, I would say I want my deepest want right now is to be in alignment with what is coming forward
Yes.
and to not run from it. So
Yes.
that's what I want. That's the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
You know,
Good. Good.
that's all I want.
Yeah. So you know what you want. And so
Yeah.
then you know what to do, to be in alignment, to fall into alignment, to patiently allow this to unfold. And, I encourage you just to look at, the personal life and say, look, am I putting any roadblocks between me and the truth? Am I slowing it down? Do I have a foot on the brake? And sometimes the path is just about taking the foot off the brake.
Yeah.
And so being deeply honest about all the places where we unconsciously put the foot on the brake. And you see, like, the truth is always presenting itself to us. And the thing that I say is, it sounds kind of harsh, but everyone knows what the truth is all the time. And most of us hide the truth from our own self because we're a little bit scared. And so, I'm going to invite you just to give that heart of yours full permission to speak, full permission to show you. Because this thing, it doesn't have to be a mystery. And if it is, sometimes God plays that game, then we just walk in the general direction of it. We walk in the general direction. For you, that you just said it, to live in alignment. To live in alignment.
Yeah.
And to walk in the direction of truth. To walk out into the fog, into the forest, and see what comes. See what comes. But I think you know what this is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just scares us a little bit. And we kind of hide it from our own self.
Yeah. And I'm getting used to, I guess I would say fear, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels like I'm being comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
It feels more like that.
And so I encourage you to be comfortable with the unknown, but also, just like energetically, to make sure you're walking in that direction of the unknown.
Yeah. I feel like
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so if that's the case, you're doing it right. You're doing everything you should be doing.
But there are some breaks, and we've spoken about this.
Yeah. I'm glad you're smiling. See, there's the honesty there. So it's looking at that. Just looking at saying, okay, I do put my foot on the brake, and can I not do that? What would life be like if I just took the brake pedal off the vehicle?
Yeah.
Like, what would life be like if I took the brake pedal off the vehicle? What would that be like? What would that be like?
So I think that's the question for me.
Yeah.
More than what do I want? Like, what does it look like when I take off the brake?
And part of it, like sometimes God, slowly presents it to us, sometimes quickly presents it to us, but the big thing is, like, we can fear it, we can resist it, but this path, it's really a path of faith. The willingness to listen to the truth, to walk in the direction of the truth. Like what my teacher used to say, despite ourselves. Yeah. So you might see, the personality. It's not necessarily we're sidestepping. It's more just telling it, like, hey, like, I see you. I see your pain, your confusion. I see your fear. That's understandable. But look, we're going to walk in this greater direction. We're going to walk in the direction of this greater truth, this greater life. Like all of us, if we went to college, like we had that time, in high school, we were like the king of the school, we were seniors, whatever. And then it was time to go to college, or the next thing in life, or take a job. And so the person, I said, well, I like it here. I know what's, this is all known. But despite the fear, we walk in the direction of a new life. So it's following this grace, following this truth, following this energy, and seeing what comes. seeing what comes. And it goes quickly with no foot on the brake. Goes, can get real slow or messy if we have one foot on and one foot on the gas, one foot on the brakes. So anyways, it's so nice to have you, Ivy. Thanks for sharing your heart with us.
Thank you for
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, let's hear from Kyle. Kyle, are you here?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, guys. So my question is kind of a little bit of what I've been experiencing the last year or so. About a year ago, I was like literally shopping for monasteries that I would consider moving into. But then I met somebody that like transformed my life completely, and how I approach relationship and everything like that. And that was about a year ago, and now I see myself like my old patterns that I was unconscious to my whole life are now surfacing into my consciousness, and part of that is like I think some of my lower chakras opening up and feeling them, and then I feel myself like I didn't know that I could act like a jerk until this relationship, and it surprised me because growing up I hear, oh Kyle, you're a good person, but I'd never had a relationship so close where now I can see that I was holding on to these like jerk-like patterns that I maybe learned from previous generations or past lives or my childhood. So I'm wondering, like, because I'm getting tired of my old patterns. So just any advice how to like work through those?
Yeah. Kyle, have you ever done karaoke?
Not a lot, no.
I'm sorry. Just mess with you. I was hoping to make you smile a little bit, Kyle. Just to loosen up around the seriousness of it. Can you envision yourself doing karaoke?
Yes, I've done it before, but under the influence of alcohol in college years.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So under the influence of alcohol, that helps the consciousness to loosen up, right? Yeah. So that's the energy that I'm inviting for you, my friend, is a looseness of being. And in a looseness of being, we can see that, oh yeah, like our human self has a saint inside, it has a sinner, has a devil, has a killer, has a murderer, has a, lustful, wild man or whatever, the prostitutes in us, all these aspects of being. The good, the bad, the ugly is within us. And so relationship will bring that out, because the relationship tends to, it supports our highest. It also, brings up fear and rejection and abandonment and, screw you or me first or whatever it does, And so this is good. And keep in mind, like these same things will come out in a monastery, and they'll come out or just in human love relationships. Yeah, I've been to a lot of monasteries myself, and I can see the monks who are hating, like one monk singing next, chanting next to another monk. See, one's hating the other, one's judging the guy who's giving the sermon for the day, or reading the book, or ringing the bell. All these little things come out, and I encourage you not to be shocked, but to get comfortable with it. Like all of the species is in you, just as all the species is within me. is within me. And, if you ever hear Jordan Peterson speak, he gives some very interesting talks around people who were in a great deal of suffering, like, say, for example, like Jews in the Holocaust. Sometimes the Nazis would do this horrific thing is they would make one Jew choose who would live and who would die. But the one who would choose, he would get to live, like because that was his job. Like his job was be the, the mining boss or whatever, the foreman. And, so he got to eat while the other guys didn't get to eat. He didn't have to work so hard. And so all these things, they're good people. So they were innately good, but they're put in a situation and put under tremendous stress. They found that, anyone would show up and be a killer just to save their own life. Anyone. And some of the people who did have that job, and who did survive the Holocaust, they would say things like, I wasn't one of the good people, and that's why I survived. And so we have all these aspects of self within us that are selfish to maintain our survival, that are selfish just because it's wired in the fabric of egoic consciousness. All these selfish aspects of self. And so, as we mature on the spiritual path, we see, oh yeah, that's within me. And like, oh yeah, there's a prostitute within me too. And basically that means I have a price. I have a price. Here's my price where I'll sell my soul or I'll sell my truth or whatever. And like we have these places within us, and this is wonderful. That relationship is challenging you. And so I encourage you to, in a sense, like when I invite you to have a Dharma beer, like to relax, loosen up, like not really drink, but just like relax, loosen up. So, of course, this stuff is within me. Of course. Every vile thought and behavior is in me as it's in you. Every saintly thought and behavior is in me, is in you, is in all beings. Is in all beings. And I encourage you to see this, to honor this, to acknowledge this. And the more you make friends with it, the more it'll loosen up and it'll relax, becomes no big deal, and then it doesn't stick and it will quickly release. But if we fight with it, or if we just hide out in our quote unquote spiritual superego and we don't see our own human self, then we develop shadows and these things can be dormant and then they come forward. I had a funny thing that happened not too long ago where I planted all these trees in my yard, and here in Colorado, like digging is really hard. Water is a whole issue. It's not like the Midwest where there's just tons of water. It's like a big deal. You got to water every morning and every night. And water costs a lot of money here in the West. And so we put all this work into planting these trees. And then, my friend the squirrel came and he's digging under the trees and eating all the roots. And then the other night, a deer came and they rubbed their antlers, on the trees and just about killed, a tree of mine. I was out there cursing the deer. These guys, who the hell do they think they are? It's like, I felt like, some silly guy on a, like a Home Depot commercial fighting with the animals and they're selling fencing or something, and, so there's these places within our consciousness that fight, that struggle, and that go to war with life. And, I could see like when I was cursing, I was like, oh my God, like this is my father. My father is here in 2021. He's in my yard yelling at the deer, get the hell out of here. And, if I laugh and smile with it, then the thing can quickly release. If I act like it's not here, if I ignore it, if I deny it, then it'll just, stay as a shadow. And then it'll show up as, something different. And so I encourage you to embrace all these things. And, for you in particular, because you kind of have that like stoic, spiritual nature, be helpful for you to bring some looseness into the room. To get a karaoke machine, do a little sing and dance and smile at the human self, smile at the human ego, dance with it, roll with it, help it to liberate itself from its stuckness or from its, shadowy nature. And so this is true for all of us, not just you I'm picking on us. All of us, we have these aspects of self hidden. And when there's a looseness of consciousness, a flexibility, that's why yoga is so good. Flexibility of consciousness, these things can come forward. We see, oh, look, my grandpa just walked in the room. Hi, Grandpa, what do you need? How can I help you relax and let go and, soften up and loosen up? And then that nature, that egoic tendency will transform before your eyes. Before your eyes. And a different type of being can come forward. And sometimes it's just simple and practical. Like I saw myself being a jerk to the deer, but then also practical is like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a roll of fencing. And so we went to, Tractor Supply store last night and bought a roll of fencing and got some steaks. And my daughter was there. We had a good old time. And, then today we're rolling out fencing, me and my wife, and just feeling, how good it felt to work in the body. To be out in the sunshine, smile at the deer, say, yeah, you're not going to eat my trees. And to be able to smile at it, So we smile at the jerk. We invite him to come forward. We soften around him. We meet him with love. And we say, hey, buddy, what's going on with you? So often when we have a jerk within us, it's just telling us like our body is stressed. We don't feel safe. So we feel like lashing out or fighting. And sometimes it's appropriate to fight. Like me, I'm going to fight the deer. I'm going to put up a fence. Like that's a good fight because I don't want them killing my trees. I want beautiful trees to be growing. He can go take his antlers somewhere else, but I want to support trees growing in my yard. And so sometimes it's a good fight, but can you fight with a smile? You see yourself being a jerk and you smile and say, what's really going on with me? What's really going on? Do I not feel safe? Do I feel challenged? Is my partner asking me to change quicker than I want to change? Can I listen to her, see, oh, is she speaking the truth? Oh yeah, she's speaking the truth. Okay. What if I soften there? What if I soften there? And so this is beautiful. These are wonderful things to investigate within your own self. And please, any of you, like any of us, when we find egoic tendencies, whether it's addiction or, struggle or fight or anger, please don't take it personally. Like you didn't create addiction. You didn't create anger. You didn't create the egoic nature. These are things God gave us. We say, okay, God, you gave me this thing. How about something better? Let's replace the jerk with the one who's patient. With the one who's patient. Sometimes the jerk needs to be replaced with the assertive one. Like the jerk is just a passive aggressive aspect of self, but when we feel into the truth of it, realize, oh no, there's something here that needs to be assertive. Or maybe even aggressive in a healthy way. Aggressive in a healthy way, where we go out on the fight, go out on the offensive, instead of waiting back, for life to knock you down. Saying, no, I'm going to build myself up. I'm going to make myself strong. And so I'm going to be so strong that these little things in the relationship won't bother me. They won't bother me. Sometimes we need to be assertive in the sense we need to have a good talk with our partner and set a boundary, or just listen to our partner saying, hey, like, what's going on here? And really investigating what they're saying to you, what you're saying to them, and coming together and figuring out what the truth is and being willing for it to be something different than what you imagined. And so anyways, it's good to see you, Kyle. Anything else you want to share?
That's it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing yourself with us. Yeah. There was a movie, it was before your time. It was called The Jerk, with Steve Martin. It was hilarious. It's probably completely inappropriate today's standards. It won't be PC for sure, but it was. I definitely got a good laugh of it back in 1986 or whenever it came out. So, anyways, it's a funny thing being human. It's a funny thing having all these egoic tendencies. And this is very much what we're surrendering. But in order to surrender it, and in order for something greater to come forward, you have to first make friends with it, to be honest and admit it's here. Admit, oh yeah, there's a jerk within me. But it's important not to judge it. It's important to smile at it, say, oh yeah, look. There's someone in here who has road rage, or who has, whatever, alcoholism or whatever. Can I make friends with him? Can I listen to him? And not his surface level thoughts, but his deeper truths. What is he wanting? What is he needing? So that he can transform, so that he can release, so that he can let go. What is he wanting? What is he needing? And can I invite something greater to come in its place? And so let's do this right before we're done. I'm going to invite everyone to close your eyes. Just to join me in calling upon this grace, this light, this brilliance, to come into our lives, to transform us in a full way, a complete way, to bring us a greater life, a greater mind, a mind of vast, spacious emptiness and immense brilliance, to come into our heart and to flood us with love and bliss. So we realize the very fabric of our nature is radiant bliss, radiant love. And God, we invite you to take a step further and to come more fully into this body, to transform this flesh body into a body of light, a body of brilliance, so that your holiness, Lord, can give birth here on earth, in the form of you and I. So I invite you to breathe this in, to receive this grace, to receive this light. In turn, God is inviting you to cooperate, to open, to receive, to surrender that which is not working. So this greater brilliance can shine through you. Can shine through you. And so much love for each and every one of you. Thank you all for your generous support of these teachings. Thank you for sharing your heart with me. Thank you for the generous donations, all the ways you show up, in this song and in this world. Something truly great is possible here. If we keep showing up, keep opening to this. I assure you, give it a little bit of time. A new life will come, be much greater than anything you had previously imagined. And so, good night, everyone. See you next time. Much love.